Meet the INEOS Grenadier Quartermaster. This is INEOS's answer to the 79 series Hilux and Ranger, but it comes with a 6-figure price tag. So today we're going to find out if that big price tag is worth the buy as a tow vehicle. You might have seen my tow review of the Grenadier wagon. I travelled over 6,000 kilometres with vans in tow. They proved the platform works, so I'll link it in the comments below. Now I've also reviewed the Quartermaster Unhitched. Again, I'll put the link down below. But today what we're trying to figure out is how well it tows. And we'll start with the numbers. Now we know it's got a good GVM and GCM, but let's break it down. So it has a stout GVM of 3,550 kilos. It doesn't have the lightest curb weight though, so the payload is okay. But what really matters is the GCM when you're towing. So we're going to do an example with a 3.5 ton trailer with a 250 kilo ball weight. So the Quartermaster's maximum tow capacity is that same limit, 3,550 kilos. So if you add that and the GVM, you get 7,050 kilos with a GCM limit of only 7,000 kilos. So straight away, you need to take 50 kilos off your vehicle's GVM to stay legal. Now if you do that, that leaves you with 782 kilos of payload once you subtract the curb weight of 2,718 kilos. But you're not done yet. The van has a 250 kilo ball weight that presses down directly onto the ute. So you end up with 532 kilos of usable payload. That needs to cover you, your passengers, fuel, fridge, if you put on a canopy, tools, the lot. That's actually not too bad. So do the same weight calculations with a Ranger V6 and you'll end up with just a couple of 100 kilos of usable payload. So not great, but do it compared to a 79 series, the natural competitor to the Trialmaster Quartermaster. And yes, the LandCruiser has more, but don't forget the LandCruiser is weighed, or the curb weight is supplied without a tray or canopy. So they actually come out really close. What happens when you put a 350 kilo ball weight on? Well, because the car has such a high GCM, all you need to do is take another 100 kilos off your usable payload, so you end up at 432 kilos. That's actually not too bad. The ADX-21 has a tier of about 2,500 kilos and an ATM of 3.5 ton, so it has a very healthy 1 ton payload. It's 8.3 meters long overall, it's 2.4 meters wide, and its height ranges from 2.7 to just over 3 meters, depending on which tire you fit and your suspension settings. To tow a quality and big van like we have, you need a quality and big power motor, and that's exactly what's under the bonnet of the INEOS. This has a 3-litre turbo diesel sourced from BMW, codenamed B57. It has 550 newton meters and 183 kilowatts of power, so it should have the grunt to tow the van no problem. It has solid axles front and rear, and it runs coil springs all around. With an 800mm wading depth, this thing is built for rough country, loaded or empty. So it's got the right numbers and the right hardware and serious credibility off-road. But what's it like to live with? One of the best things on the inside of a Quartermaster are the Recaro seats. Now these are standard across the range, not just in high-spec vehicles. They're breathable, they're comfortable, and they're great when you're bouncing around off-road. It's not all perfect inside though. The steering wheel and the pedals are slightly offset, and there is a large footrest for your left foot. I think it's fine, and I'm not a small person, but if you're sensitive to ergonomics, it's best to go jump in one and get a feel for yourself. So underway, particularly at high speed, I find the INEOS Grenadier and the Quartermaster. I reckon the Grenadier and Quartermaster are actually really comfortable places to be. At low speeds, you will feel some bouncing through the suspension. It is solid axle, it is coil sprung, but fundamentally it is still a very basic agricultural style of chassis. That said, at speed, these things come alive. On the open road, I reckon they're actually a really nice car to drive, and off-road, almost unstoppable. So this is a Trialmaster, one of the models in the Grenadier and Quartermaster range. So let's figure out what sets it apart. Step up to the Trialmaster and you get the gear that matters for serious touring and off-roading. It adds front and rear diff locks, BFG KO2 all-terrains, a raised air intake, and a full utility belt system around the tub. Inside you get an overhead switch panel, an auxiliary battery system under the back seat, some ambient lighting and a lockable central box. There's also front and rear parking sensors, a reversing camera and off-road mode. It's the spec most buyers go for, and it's the one I'd recommend for anybody doing serious touring, but it starts at $118,000. So is it worth it? So it starts from $118,000. I've had a look on the configurator, which is a lot of fun by the way, and I've optioned one up to about $133,000, $136,000. Now all those options aren't necessary because the Trialmaster is so capable out of the box at $118,000. But I can hear you asking, how does that compare to a 79 series? The 79 series dual cab GXL, so the higher spec model, with diff locks starts at around $96,000. But that's a cab chassis only, so add a basic tray and a few accessories like equivalent wheels and tyres, and you're right up to 100 grand already, maybe even 110, and you're still with an old 6-speed auto and a 2.8 with less power and far fewer creature comforts. The Quartermaster might give up a couple of 100 kilos of payload, but it brings a modern drivetrain, better tech and a much more livable cabin. If you've driven a 70 series, you know it's about as comfortable as a forklift on a gravel yard, and the older I get, the less I want to live that way. So on to how it tows that big Bruder. So towing the ADX-21 Bruder. This is the right car for it. The high GCM, high GVM means the ball weight doesn't affect your payload as much as it does quite a few other cars. I particularly like the fact that we have triple locks in this, being a Trialmaster front and rear diff lockers. We needed them today on the beach because we did get stuck. Fuel consumption, mid-20s, high 20s if you're working a bit harder. I reckon out on the open road, even with a full-size van, you're probably going to be seeing 22 around about, which is about expected considering we see about 13 unhitched. As a towing proposition, probably the star is the Driveline. The 6-cylinder is so silky smooth, and the 8-speed always seems to have the right gear no matter what hill is in front of you or what beach you're getting stuck on. So that's towing, but what's it like to live with day to day? Unhitched, the Quartermaster feels heavy because it is heavy, but it's well controlled. The ride is firm, not punishing, thanks to the coil suspension and ZF dampers. It handles washouts and rough back roads better than you'd expect from a live axle ute. It feels better the faster you go. Around town, the big thing you'll notice with the Quartermaster is the turning circle. It is quite wide, so you need to keep an eye out, particularly in tight car parks. As a family vehicle, the cabin's spacious enough. The second row has a decent view out. It's slightly elevated, which is really good for the kids. And there's real thought put into things like charging ports and rear storage. There's an old saying that you can't have your cake and eat it too, and it applies to vehicles. There's compromises, right? So this is not a budget purchase. It's an expensive vehicle, $118,000 starting price. But you won't find something as well built, as silky smooth, or as capable for the money as you will for the Grenadier Quartermaster. Now, if you're serious about outback towing or touring, this is a really good platform to start with because of those key numbers. That 7,000 kilo GCM, that 3.5 ton GVM, there's room to work with it. And on the road, at speed and off-road, these are really comfortable rigs.